you ever hit that big milestone? That funding round, the product launch, user growth exploding. For a fleeting moment, there's this rush, like the universe just high-fived you. Then before the champagne even goes flat, you're already scanning the horizon, eyes narrowed, for the next peak. The next impossible summit to conquer. We're told this is ambition, drive, the mark of a true leader. But what if it's just a very sophisticated, highly engineered hamster wheel? What if the very definition of progress we've internalized is actually rewiring our brains for perpetual dissatisfaction? This isn't about being lazy or lacking drive. This is about asking, whose game are we actually playing? And what's the real cost? Welcome to NeuroMinds. I'm your host, Ash. And today, we're peeling back the layers of that constant chase, the one that leaves so many high-achieving professionals feeling not successful, but simply empty. We're going to talk about the dopamine dilemma, and why so many tech leaders are burning out chasing goals that ultimately burn them out. And to help us navigate this intricate map of human drive and cultural conditioning, we have a truly unique perspective joining us today. Our guest today is someone who literally maps the addiction to metrics, not just as a business problem, but as a cultural narrative failure. He calls himself the Human Carthographer. Eric Landa's journey isn't from a traditional business consulting background. It's rooted in cultural anthropology, understanding why people do what they do, how cultures form, and what belief systems drive us. After navigating the high-stakes world of advertising, witnessing firsthand the manipulation versus inspiration game, Eric hit his own wall. A deep exhaustion, a profound disillusionment around 2005, where he realized he'd lost his own why. His path to rediscovery became the foundation of his philosophy. So his message isn't just theory, it's born from a personal crisis resolved. His perspective on life and business is fundamentally biological and anthropological. He sees organizations not as money-making machines, but as human tribes with cultures, values, and symbols. He blends simplified biology, humanistic philosophy, and powerful modern parables to explain how we're designed. Eric's communication style is a masterclass in putting his own ideas into practice. Passionate yet serene, didactic yet profoundly narrative, deliberate and incredibly impactful. Eric, welcome to NeuroMinds. It's a privilege to have you here.
Thank you, Ash. It's a true pleasure to be here and to delve into these critical questions. My fascination has always been with what truly moves us, not just what we say moves us.
Eric, let's just cut to the chase. When you hit a major milestone, the funding announcement, the insane user growth, the successful IPO, how long does that high actually last before you're already sketching out the next mountain to climb? Be honest. For me, it feels like a fleeting moment, then a profound sense of what now. It's
a question that has haunted humanity for millennia, just now amplified by our modern technological environment. And to answer directly, Ash, for most, that sense of accomplishment is incredibly short-lived, or perhaps hours. A day, if it's truly monumental. Because the very mechanism that drives us to achieve, dopamine, is not designed for sustained contentment. It's designed for seeking. It's a molecule of pursuit, not arrival.
So that rush, that high after achieving something big, do you think that's driven by purpose or by dopamine? And how in the hell do you tell the difference when both feel so damn good in the moment?
That's the central tension, isn't it? The brain doesn't neatly separate purpose-driven joy from dopamine hit. But we can discern the difference by observing the aftermath. The dopamine hit is fleeting. It demands the next reward, the next external validation. It's like eating junk food, momentarily satisfying, but ultimately leaves you feeling hollow or craving more. True purpose, on the other hand, provides a deeper, more enduring sense of fulfillment. It's an internal compass, not an external carrot. When you're truly aligned with your why, the work itself becomes the reward, regardless of the immediate outcome. The sense of peace, of deep engagement, is what differentiates it. It's a slower burn, but it's a fire that keeps you warm for longer.
I've seen this play out 1,000 times. Our brains, particularly in the tech world, have been exquisitely trained to associate progress with these external markers: scale, speed, attention, virality. What's the actual emotional cost of that conditioning over time? Because it feels less like thriving and more like a slow, internal depletion.
Precisely. We've outsourced our internal reward system to external metrics. The neocortex, our rational brain, becomes overly reliant on the limbic system's primitive reward circuits. The cost is immense: chronic stress, anxiety, emotional flatness, and ultimately a profound disconnect from our intrinsic motivations. It leads to what I call metric addiction. Your nervous system is constantly on high alert, anticipating the next hit, leading to an overproduction of cortisol and adrenaline. It's why so many brilliant, successful people feel so utterly exhausted and unfulfilled. Their internal state becomes dictated by an endless, unachievable external chase.
So, when did growth stop feeling exciting and start feeling like an obligation, an addiction, or even just avoidance? What happened to our nervous system in that shift? Because I hear so many founders say, "I used to love this, now it just feels like a prison."
It happens subtly, incrementally. It's the point where the external validation becomes the primary driver, overshadowing the initial spark of creation or purpose. The nervous system shifts from a state of creative flow and healthy challenge to one of chronic alarm. The sympathetic nervous system is constantly activated. You're in a perpetual fight or flight mode, even when there's no immediate danger. This isn't sustainable. It's why you see panic attacks, sudden bursts of anger, or profound apathy in people who are objectively succeeding. Their bodies are screaming, "This is not safe," even if their minds are telling them, "You're winning."
So, is our goal structure reinforcing habits of shallow reward? These endless checklists, KPIs, the media buzz? Or is it creating space for deep focus, emotional presence, and true values alignment? Because most of what I see is the former. It's all about the quick hit.
It's a crucial distinction. Most modern goal-setting frameworks are designed for speed and external validation. They feed the dopamine loop. We're rewarded for checking boxes, for rapid iteration, for proving our worth externally. But real, sustainable motivation comes from within. It comes from alignment with your why, with something bigger than yourself or your next quarterly report. It's about building a neural pathway that connects your actions to your deep values, not just to a fleeting numerical outcome. It means designing goals that inherently require deep focus, collaboration, and ethical consideration, not just raw output.
We're deep into the dopamine dilemma, and if any of this is resonating with you, that feeling of chasing something that never quite satisfies, the creeping exhaustion despite external wins, then you're exactly where you need to be. This isn't just about theory, it's about recalibrating your most powerful tool, your brain. We're going to dig into how to actually retrain your reward system, not to stop achieving, but to connect with something far more meaningful. So, stick with us. If you're finding this conversation valuable, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review NeuroMinds on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more leaders who are silently battling this very same burnout. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone trapped in the endless chase, share this episode with them. Eric, let's pivot to solutions. What would it actually look like to retrain your reward system? Not to stop achieving, because frankly, most of our listeners aren't going to quit their jobs and become hermits, but to start feeling deeply connected to what you're building. Is this even possible without completely disrupting everything?
It is absolutely possible, and it doesn't require abandoning ambition. It requires reorienting it. The first step is awareness, recognizing when you're chasing dopamine versus aligning with purpose. Then it's about intentionally creating new reward pathways. For instance, celebrate the process as much as the outcome. Find joy in the collaboration, the problem solving, the learning. Build rituals around deep work, not just rapid-fire outputs. Shift from extrinsic motivators, like hitting a growth target for investor approval, to intrinsic ones, like creating a product that genuinely solves a human problem, regardless of how many users it has on day one. It's about anchoring your sense of accomplishment in the impact and the integrity of your work rather than just the scale.
If you're no longer chasing growth to escape discomfort, what would you start building from a place of actual purpose? Not pressure, not legacy hype, but inner conviction. Because I think for a lot of people, the discomfort is precisely what drives them. Without it, they don't know who they are.
That's the deeper work. That's the shift from a doing identity to a being identity. When you operate from a place of purpose, you're building not just a product or a company, but an extension of your truest self. This is where innovation truly thrives, because you're no longer limited by what the market demands, but by what your inner conviction compels you to create. It's about asking, what problem do I feel uniquely called to solve? What values do I want to embed in the world? And then, the growth becomes a natural consequence of authentic creation, not the sole aim.
Whose approval, or whose algorithm, are you still performing for, even if your company's thriving? What unmet emotional need is that cycle actually feeding? This is where it gets uncomfortable.
This is the core of the dilemma. So often, we pursue external metrics, likes, shares, user numbers, valuation, because they tap into very primal human needs for belonging, validation, and significance. If those needs aren't met internally or through genuine human connection, the algorithm becomes a surrogate. It feeds an illusion of connection or worth. The unmet emotional need is usually a hunger for unconditional acceptance or a fear of irrelevance. Until that need is acknowledged and addressed, the chase for external validation will continue endlessly.
What part of you fears slowing down? Not because it's wrong, but because without the dopamine of constant motion, you're afraid of what you might actually feel. That's the real boogeyman for many. The silence.
Yes, the silence. The fear of stillness. Because in that stillness, we might confront anxieties, unresolved emotions, or even just the uncomfortable truth of our own limitations. The constant motion is a powerful distraction. It's a way to avoid the deeper internal landscape. But the paradox is, until you face what's there, you can't truly integrate it. And until you integrate it, it will continue to drive you unconsciously, often into patterns of self-sabotage and burnout. Slowing down isn't about stopping. It's about recalibrating your internal compass.
If your startup vanished tomorrow, gone, evaporated, would your sense of self survive it? Or has your brain fused success with self-worth so completely that you'd be lost? This is the ultimate existential question for the tech leader.
It's the ultimate test of internal resilience. When your identity is solely fused with external achievements, the loss of those achievements feels like the loss of self. This is a very real danger in a culture that valorizes the entrepreneur as the sum of their output. The neural pathways reinforce this fusion. But true self-worth comes from within, from your inherent dignity as a human being, not from your latest valuation. Separating your doing from your being is fundamental to a sustainable, meaningful life. It's about remembering that you are worthy, regardless of whether you hit your next KPI or not.
So, bringing it full circle then, Eric, what does your nervous system actually crave at this stage? Another growth spike, or deeper alignment with something that doesn't disappear when the funding cycle ends? What's the real hunger?
Your nervous system craves coherence. It craves alignment. It craves a sense of safety and belonging that doesn't depend on external validation. It craves purpose that resonates at a cellular level, not just a mental one. It craves to operate from a place of deep internal conviction, not from the frantic energy of external pressure. It craves sustainable energy, not the fleeting high of a dopamine hit. It craves to be wired for meaning, not just for metrics. And when you give it that, you'll find that true, impactful growth follows. But it's a growth that sustains you as well.
This conversation with Eric has been less about a how-to guide and more about a fundamental reevaluation of what drives us. What we choose to measure, what we choose to celebrate, and what we choose to chase. These aren't just business decisions. They are deeply neurological, deeply human choices that rewire our brains, for better or for worse. If you're feeling that pull, that sense of a perpetual unfulfillment despite all the external wins, take a moment. Slow down. Ask yourself, Whose approval am I performing for? What emotional void am I trying to fill with this next milestone? Because the truth is, the system will continue to reward the chase. It will continue to flood your brain with fleeting dopamine. But the real work, the work of reclaiming your mind and your purpose, starts with choosing to break that cycle. It starts with daring to define success on your own terms, rooted in something far more profound than just numbers on a screen. Thank you, Eric, for this incredibly insightful and truly essential conversation. Your perspective as the human cartographer has given us a vital map to navigate this complex terrain.
Thank you, Ash. It's been a pleasure to share these insights and to hopefully empower your listeners to rediscover their true why.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on NeuroMinds. Remember, true clarity isn't found in chasing more, but in understanding what truly fuels you. Choose wisely. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and reclaim your mind.